Good evening, I'm Pinky Webb. Tonight we ask the questions, we tackle the issues, we clarify matters, and we get on point. To say that the passage of the 2025 national budget was challenging may be an understatement, with the BICAM's proposal having substantial differences with the National Expenditure Program, or NEP. The President and his economic team were forced to spend the holidays fixing the budget's final version. But despite a thorough review, the General Appropriations Act is still being criticized, particularly for huge cuts in education, health, and social welfare. Some even call it the worst national budget. Some are planning to take it to the Supreme Court. Let's get on point with Budget Secretary Amenah Pangandaman. Secretary Mina, maraming salamat po sa inyong oras. It's good to see you.
Maraming salamat din, Miss Pinky. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
Thank you for
Thanks for coming to the
invite.
studio. Yeah.
Maraming salamat din po.
Ang dami kong gustong tanungin sa'yo at mag-uumpisa na po ako. But before I ask, siguro definition of terms po muna tayo to understand what the budget process goes through. Na palagi po nating naririnig yung NEP, National Expenditure Program, GAB, General Appropriations Bill, GA, General Appropriations Act. Maybe kayo na pong definition of terms.
Okay, so siguro I can give you an example of the timeline this year. So we passed the General Appropriations Act. The President signed the General Appropriations Act December 30, meaning yan na po yung budget na i-execute ng DBM and all the department agencies for the year. So, January 1 po, may mga nilabas na po tayong budget, especially those that are already in the National Expenditure Program. So, sa National Expenditure Program naman po, this January, 2 weeks ago, nag-release na rin po tayo ng National Budget Circular for the budget call. Meaning, nag-start na po yung preparations ng mga department heads and line agencies natin to work on their proposed budget. And then, so the proposed budget will be, the product of that is the President's budget or the National Expenditure Program. And then that's what we present to the Congress, to the House of Representatives for their, for their study and therefore passage. And then once passed, it's already General Appropriations Bill. That's the version that will go up to the Senate. Yeah, and then once it goes to the Senate also starts their own committee hearings, their plenary debates and deliberations. And then once they pass their version of the GAB, there will be a BICAM.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and after the BICAM, whatever the result of the BICAM is, that will be sent to the Office of the President for study. And you know po, whether the President, whether the President will sign it or not.
So you missed, did you miss the holidays because you had to scrutinize the budget together with the economic team of the President?
A little. Medyo po. Medyo lang. All of us, the economic team and even Secretary Manny Bonoan of DPWH, among others. Yeah.
How would you describe, during those days that you met together with the President, you were there, Secretary Recto, Bonoan, Lucas Bersamin was there, ES rather, and the rest. I mean, there was a small group, obviously, the economic team. When you saw the GAB, no, yung galing po sa Kongreso, how would you describe that budget that you saw compared to the NEP, the one that you proposed, headed by the DBM?
Well, first, it was not easy because we have a time constraint. We need to have a budget passed before the end of the year. And medyo, we don't have that enough window when they passed it, when the Congress already ratified their version. So what we only saw after the BICAM is just the summary. Yeah. Of the budget. So it will actually take some time for us to get the entire copy of the enrolled bill. Medyo matagal po yun because makapal po yung budget natin. And then we will have to check the projects one by one, especially if it's DPWH. Ang dami po. In fact, the DPWH, meron po siyang sariling libro in the budget. So actually, the problem lang is that yung time constraint, because we want to have a budget before the end. We want to have a signed budget before the end of the year.
So when you, on the surface, saw the summary, the NEP compared to the GAB, what was glaring for you guys, for the executive?
Of course, at first, like any other, the reductions. The reductions in some of the departments and agencies.
So what was siguro to you yung nakakagulat na nakita niyo? Would it be the DepEd? Would it be the PhilHealth? Although sinuportahan naman ng presidente yun.
Baka yung DepEd kasi the DepEd, because we all know Secretary Sari Angara already parang mentioned it, tweeted about it. So it was DepEd, and then
The 12 billion?
Yes, the 12
natatanggal sa
billion
DepEd.
reduction for the computerization program. And of course, the increase in DPWH, lagi naman po yun. Lagi talaga pong nagkakaroon ng increase sa DPWH. We also understand the need to spend on our infrastructure spending because we've been underspending on that area. Yun po. And then some areas like, the PhilHealth was reduced. Where else? Department of Agriculture, it was reduced. And then, yung mga finance of our department agencies, yung mga USEC nila assigned in the budget, they know it also so they will already text or call the president na Mr. President, SEC, nabawasan kami, ganun po. So alam na rin po naman nila.
Tumatawag.
Alam naman po nila.
Ang dami ho siguro tumatawag na nawalan o natanggalan po. I guess it's good kasi to find out the process, Amenah, no? Kasi nga alam na lang po natin, yun nga sometimes just the terminologies. But where does the problem really lie? Because from where we stand, as basic, I know it's more complicated than this, but if the NEP, if the executive studies the budget, talks to every department head, magkano ho bang kailangan mo, DPWH, DOH, etc., you pull them together, you try to make sense out of that to 6, more or less, trillion peso budget. And then binibigay niyo po sa Congress, and then Congress has their committee hearings. Congress has sponsorship. Doon po pumupunta yung mga department heads. Kinikilati supposed to be yung budget. And then bigla na lang pong nagkaroon ng malakihang pagbabago. Malaki ho ba yung naging pagbabago na lang? So I guess that's the question from the NEP to the GAB.
Just to explain also, again, it's not easy to prepare the budget. You mentioned about that because of the limited fiscal space. When we crafted the budget, pag naglabas po kami ng budget call, we will ask the agencies, ano yung mga priorities nyo? But we give them a framework. It should be consistent with our Philippine Development Plan, consistent with our medium-term fiscal framework, with our socio-economic agenda, consistent with the respective development plans that the agencies proposed and as approved by the President in the earlier part of the administration. If I can just share, yung total requests proposed ng lahat po ng ahensya ng gobyerno in the 2025 is 9.2 trillion pesos. But our budget ceiling is only 6.352 trillion pesos. So again, it really went through the process. Of course, I know that sa NEP pa lang, baka meron na po tayong hindi na pagbigyan ng mga ahensya. But then, we make do of what we have. And then whatever we have, we propose it to the cabinet, they agree on it, and we give it to Congress. It's in our Constitution, Ms. Pinky, we respect what's in the Constitution. That's the process. We respect the power of the purse. That's how it goes. We propose. The executive proposes the budget, and then the Congress approves it.
Right.
Yes.
Right. But also to be clear about this, the NEP was at 6.352.
Yes.
Okay, galing po sa executive yon. Pagdating po sa Congress after BICAM, hindi naman po nagbago, 6.352 pa rin.
Yes, same level because they cannot add.
They cannot add,
They
right?
cannot add.
Even the executive cannot add.
Yes.
So pagdating po sa GAL, what the President signed, dito po bumaba from 6.352 to 6.326. Opo.
The President vetoed some 26 billion pesos in the Department of Public Works and Highways budget.
And nagtanggal din po sa
And 160 billion under the unprogrammed appropriations po.
So, how can something like this siguro ho kasi, I guess, how do you say it? You had to look into the budget seriously and as much as you could because nga, the budget was criticized. Whether it was supposedly laden with pork, etc., or of course, Secretary Sani Angara's 12 billion cut, everyone saying digitalization, why take that out? Because part of that 12 billion is the 10 billion for digitalization. And then of course, you have PhilHealth wherein government decided, oh, we're going to give you zero subsidy, PhilHealth, because ang dami ninyong pera. But how can something like this, I guess, moving forward, be fixed in the future so that siguro hindi ho masyadong nagkakaiba ang NEP at GAB?
I also understand that may reasons din po yung ating Kongreso. Sometimes they also see maybe nakikita din po nila na yung ibang mga ahensya may mga underutilization din po. We also do that when we do the President's budget. So kaya talagang yung iba, naiintindihan din po namin yung mga nababawasan sa budget nila. But then again, moving forward...
But didn't you study that prior to...
We did. But maybe through their committee hearings and then plenary debates, mas may nakita pa po sila na malamang possibly hindi namin nakita or maybe which they think hindi pa muna kailangan ng executive for this year, kaya posible din po na binawasan nila.
All right. So let's just go again dun sa cuts, no? So 12 billion sa DepEd. Will the DBM be able to fund the supposed digitalization of 10 billion pesos that the DepEd needs for gadgets, etc., for students and teachers? What's the plan there?
That's what we're doing right now. The president, we've been meeting with the president since last year up to ito po, up to this afternoon, and then we're trying to look for sources of funds. Yes po, we will try to...
Where do you find these sources of funds, Amenah?
First, you know, hindi po napapag-usapan doon sa veto message ng ating presidente, yung section 6. This is the increases in appropriations and budgetary items. What we've been discussing so far is the direct veto. The direct veto of 26 billion and the 160 billion direct veto also under the unprogrammed appropriations, it's already out. Kumbaga, we call it tapon. Wala na siya. Bumaba yung level ng budget. But there's also a provision in the veto message of the President, Section 6, which says that the increases in appropriations and new budgetary items will be under conditional implementation. Yung conditional implementation po, that is worth 787 billion pesos. Meaning, and then you less 26 billion, so it's 750 plus billion na lang. Yung 750 plus billion pesos na natira po, hindi pa po namin i-release yan. It's conditional.
Yeah.
Opo. We will issue SARO pag yung mga agency po kaya na nila i-defend or i-justify yung mga amounts na yon.
757.
Okay. So in that amount, for example, in the Department of Public Works and Highways, siya po yung pinakamalaking increase ngayon sa budget, he will have to study. Of the 757, I think yung DPWH dyan is about 300 billion. 300 billion? 100?
Almost half.
Almost
Okay.
half, yeah,
Okay.
is DPWH.
Okay.
And of that amount, possibly, merong mga projects dyan that the DPWH may deem not to implement.
Right.
Because he thinks that this budget is not implementable, it's not ready, we won't be able to finish it and complete it. So yung amount na yon, whatever that amount, it can be in a form of savings. And then we can use that for other projects na nabawasan within the department.
So meron kayong posibleng savings from these conditional money
Yes,
or budget?
per department po.
Per department.
Opo. So like DPWH, I think that's how Secretary Manny Bonoan will fix the reductions, because I know that he said may mga certain items siya sa budget na nabawasan din po. While the total increase is quite high, there are still movements inside the budget, like right-of-way, repair and maintenance,
Okay.
and other operations. So dun po niya kukunin. Yung po yung isang source na pwede nating pagkuhanan. Second is the unprogrammed appropriations. But of course, you can only tap unprogrammed appropriations if you have excess revenues as certified by the Bureau of Treasury. And lastly,
Ibig sabihin, pag meron kayong extrang pera,
extra pera
basically.
pag may nag-certify po ang Treasury.
Yeah.
And then lastly po, the contingent fund of the President, which is not quite big, but I think it can also augment those programs
So
na
tatlo pa
nabawasan.
pala. Tatlo pa lang
Yes
pwedeng
po.
pagkunan.
Meron
Itong
naman po.
conditional budget, the unprogrammed funds, and the contingent funds of the President.
Yes
All
po.
right. We have more of our discussion with Secretary Amenah Pangandaman. After the break, stay tuned. This is On Point.
To BNC's Election 2025 special coverage.
Let's unpack the numbers,
Government still remains constant.
discover the stories,
Unemployment rate
and explore the forces that drive our economy and shape our future.
Does it change your projections?
Join me on Business 360, where we break down the data, connect the dots, and bring the bigger picture into focus.
Welcome back. Still with us, Budget Secretary Amenah Pangandaman, AKAP, ma'am. Yung AKAP kasi, pumasok lang sa budget in 2024 and then now in 2025. In the NEP, meron ho bang AKAP o wala?
Wala po.
Okay. So, clearly, in 2024, wala. In 2025, wala din po.
Yes
Kahit
po.
na po nasingit nung 2024, hindi nyo pa rin to nilagyan ng pondo in 2025 under the DPWH.
It was not requested, DSWD, it was not requested by
Sorry,
Secretary...
DSWD, you're
Yes,
right.
it was not requested by Secretary Rex.
So, when it was, would the word inserted be correct? Inserted in the BICAM?
Yes.
Okay.
Amendment or an initiative.
Okay, pagandahin po natin. What was the reaction of the economic team of the President? I know that the President said, go, but this is conditional. But what can you tell us about, even for example, your reaction to a 26 billion peso amendment insertion?
Of course, I called SecRex first. We talked to SecRex first, and then we asked if the program is working or if it goes directly to the beneficiaries. And he gave us naman the numbers, and he provided us the numbers. Maganda naman po yung numero. I was able to utilize almost the entire amount last year. And then the total beneficiaries is more than 4 million.
Yeah.
We asked some of the stakeholders kung nakakatulong po ba yung AKAP sa mga masa, sa mga beneficiaries. Sabi naman po nila, meron naman pong naitutulong. So, there. And then conditional na
So
lang po.
that what would you say, influenced you or gave you that seal of approval because when you asked, nakakatulong naman?
Opo.
Okay.
And coming from the department secretary who will implement the project, now, and then there's a conditional ano naman po,
From the
implementation
president, yeah.
from the president, very specific naman that there will be safeguards and guidelines. So,
Yeah. So that is true. Last year, about 4 million. I guess what benefited from AKAP. I guess my question is, why will this not be good at the end of the day? Kasi tulong po ito sa mga tao na nangangailangan. The question is, did you find out if at the end of the day it's really redundant to the other tulong para po sa masa?
That's why when they prepared there's a new guidelines now that they're preparing. I think it's in their final stages already. And soon, Secretary Laguesma of DOLE, Secretary R.C. Balisacan of NEDA, and Sec Rex Gatchalian will sign the guidelines. And with the new guidelines, which we also presented to the Executive Secretary and the President, it is more mas specific na po yung pagbibigyan, yung mga beneficiaries. And then there will be a lot of safeguards already in providing for this cash payouts.
Payout, yeah. Pwede pong cash, pwede ding in the form of burial assistance, I believe, and even hospitalization. That's why it was a little bit similar to some
AIX,
of
like
also.
AIX. But
yeah.
I think the new guidelines will already note that the qualified beneficiaries are individuals whose income is below the regional minimum wage. So
yeah.
these are employed already. At
Opo.
least may trabaho po.
Totoo.
Opo.
At kulang, yun nga po, kulang
Kulang.
ang kita, basically. In the guidelines, is it important for the executive, the DBM, to make sure that this is free from politics? How so? Because this was distributed last year and politicians were there. Is it incumbent to be able to have a directive wherein politicians should not be present during distributions, ma'am?
Yes, it's actually included in the new guidelines wherein assistance will directly benefit the intended recipients without any requirement for or need for any intermediaries or middleman. There will be no banners from and presence of politicians during the actual distribution of financial assistance.
Okay.
There
Clear.
po. Maliwanag po.
Okay.
Opo.
What about, Sec Mina, yung pong congressman or senator na magsabi na bibigay ng recommendation?
Recommendation.
Apo. Papayagan ho ba yun?
Ang proseso po ni SecRex is that all over the country, of course, may mga offices siya, and then meron siyang social workers. And these social workers are professional po. They sign the social case of each and every individual that they will propose. Assuming they propose, of course, we cannot prevent them because they know what's happening in the grounds. So, pagkabigay po, possibly, the social worker will check and then sign off if pwede po talaga bigyan yung nirecommend nila na beneficiary.
Pero darating ho kaya yung panahon na wala ng ganon, recommendation letter from any politician, because at the end of the day, it is the people's money.
Yeah. Kaya po, maybe in this guidelines, we will, ipapasok na po natin yung PhilSys natin, yung national ID natin. With that, we will have a database, a complete database of the entire of the population. And then with that, makikita na po kung may problema, kung if you belong to this class, and pwede ka na po bigyan kaagad.
In fact, very interesting you say that, because the DSWD was saying from ASEC Dumlao that the PhilSys can be connected to some sort of bank wherein pwedeng dumiretso na yung pera doon, hindi yung...
Yes po, yun naman po, we've been promoting that, yung digital payments. With that naman po, ang maganda dyan, you don't have to call the people in one area. Hindi mo na kailangan ipatawag sa barangay, sa covered court, yung lahat ng beneficiaries. Yeah. Hindi na po. So, at least hindi na po kailangan nila mamasahe and all. So, you just send it to them. They'll get their cash assistance.
Very quickly, though, this needs to be answered because we have a statement or a reaction from the head of the Makati Business Club, Mr. Ong Pin, calling this budget twisted. I'm not sure if we have that ready. Can we listen?
We are more than dissatisfied and disappointed with the way the budget has, in our view, been twisted to serve patronage politics. President Marcos actually has an excellent cabinet, I think, right? Now, the task is to defend it from the congressmen and particularly the Bicameral Committee, all right? The Bicameral Committee, and that process is closed door, right? So when they were doing all of these little diversions and the magic, there's no accountability because there's no transparency.
care to react to that, Sec. Pina? Parang, actually, hindi naman kayo ang nabiblame dito, sinasabing pagdating sa BICAM, nagkakaroon ng magic. That's not something unheard of. Napag-uusapan din naman po yun in the past. I guess the question is, how can, yun nga yung question eh, how can this not go to patronage politics? Parang ganun po, shield it from patronage politics.
Again, we have a process to follow, Ms. Pinky. We can only propose, and then it will be the Congress to approve the budget. And then at the end of the day, we'll be the one to execute and implement the projects. Maybe, you know, ito maganda po, no? Very first cabinet meeting ng Presidente is that he asked, the first directive is that he asked all the cabinet secretaries to look into their budgets, in their 2025 budget. And then we'll sit down and then look for ways to prioritize yung mga legacy projects ng Presidente. Yun nga po yung sinasabi natin, that we will try to at least find a way to restore all our legacy projects. Now, on how to prevent, maybe, of course, we don't know, but maybe a more closer coordination between the legislative and the executive. Moving forward, we cannot be part of the BICAM. That's not the process. I don't know how we can solve that. But I don't know if they'll be willing to make the BICAM.
Televise yung BICAM.
Make it more transparent, no? Baka po pwede live, just like the committee. The committee hearings po live. Committee plenary, it's also live. Hindi ko po alam kung baka, maybe moving forward, we can also encourage a BICAM committee na maging live.
Okay, we're running out of time. Just a couple of things we need to talk about. Secretary Frasco requesting to return this 400 million pesos supposed to be for branding of the DOT, to which the President, I believe, had approved it in today's hearing, or meeting rather. DBM is ready to adhere to that.
We are.
Okay. And then, also very important, is that we heard that you are also preparing for an international summit next month. Please give us a background on this.
Okay, so consistent with the transparency that we were talking about earlier, we'll be hosting the very first Open Government Partnership Asia-Pacific Summit. This is on February 5 to 7 at Grand Hyatt. So we'll be hosting this together with some 200 international delegates who are embracing the advocacy of open government. Open government is actually working with citizens. It's citizens' participation, accountability, inclusivity in the governance, including the budget process.
Is this the first time we're hosting this?
It's the first time that we're hosting it.
So that's big.
It's big. It's
all right.
big.
And how important is it, I guess, for the Philippines to be hosting this?
Katulad po nito ngayon sa budget natin, we want everyone to be part of it. You know, siguro kaya din po napakalakas ng naririnig natin na mga issues dahil sa budget, because you know, since day one, the executive signed an executive order, the President signed an executive order institutionalizing open government partnership. That is, ito po yung bukas na pamamahala. Ngayon po, with the social media, with the digitalization, and then our websites are all open, nakikita na po kaagad ng tao yung mga mali sa proseso. So from our part, at least in the DBM, we want the citizens to participate in the budget process. And we're happy that it's actually happening now. And then moving forward, maybe we can make reforms along the way just to prevent issues from happening.
And I just found out from Secretary Amenah, before we say goodbye, is that they are already preparing for the 2026 budget. When do you begin?
We started already. We already released our budget call, and we will convene a meeting together with the entire cabinet
Okay.
Usually po, hindi po umaaten ang ating mga cabinet secretaries. Usually, mga USEC lang yan ang umaaten. But now, because of we wanted closer coordination at saka matinding pagbabantay sa kanilang mga budget, on January 27, we'll sit down, all of us, for the budget call.
That's about in 2 weeks. Secretary
Yes.
Amenah Pangandaman. Ma'am, thank you for your time.
Thank you
I hope
very
to have
much
you
po.
again
Yes,
in the
sure
near
po.
future. Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat din po.
Thank you. And that's On Point. Join us again tomorrow, 7:30 p.m. here on BNC, the Billionario News Channel. I'm Pinky Webb. Thank you for watching.